Hey there everybody, this is PotterBrony, and welcome to another blind reaction of something from Team 4-Star. This time we have the top 12 Dragon Ball techniques for DBCember 2019. And before anybody asks, no, I will not be doing a reaction to the honorable mentions video, which is just as long as this one. I have the full video of all 12 of them, as posted, the link to the original description below, and I'll also include the links to all 12 individual ones. But I'm just going to watch it straight through as this. I know I haven't told maybe I should break it up, but no, I'm just going to do it all in one shot. This is how I was planning to do it from the beginning, and that's how it's going to be. So yeah, be sure to support the official release, and let's just get it started and see what Team 4-Star's got in store for us for the top 12 Dragon Ball techniques. Or I should say 13 videos, because there's the intro video as well. But yeah, the links in the description will include this main video and the 13 links of the videos that make this one up. Alright, and start the video in 3, 2, 1, and go.
Konnichiwa, what's up, minasan?
And welcome back to... What was it? What was that one?
Oh, I'm just trying out more bilingual portmanteaus.
Kaiser, as co-owner of this company, I'm going to have to ask you to stop immediately.
Well, Sumima, excuse me, princess.
Kaiser, I will take you to court. DBCember! Happy Broly Days, folks. We're back at it again with another advent calendar of judgment.
Wait, us judging the criteria, or the audience is judging us? It's both. I know it's both.
Little both.
And speaking of the criteria, I've got a quick question for the two of you. What is a classic staple of all shonen anime?
Filler?
Inconsistent animation?
Too many characters.
Power creep? Techniques. It's technique. Oh my god. Look, it's techniques. You can't have a shonen battle without them, like Yusuke Urameshi's Spirit Gun!
Or Naruto's Rasengan.
Or Rio from City Hunter when he
Or
blows
the
you
thousands
up
of
with a
other
bazooka for running you over with a sick-ass red mini that shoots a bunch of barrels
things that Naruto does.
He looks like a badass! Rio was my maiden Jump Force.
Excuse me, a main in Jump Force?
It was a fun game, Scott! Techniques are what make a battle shonen, and some of the most famous techniques in the entire genre can be found in Dragon Ball. From the Spirit Bomb to the Tri-Beam.
You mean a Genkidama and Kikoho?
Oh my god, this is gonna be a whole thing with you, isn't it? There's a ton to enjoy and choose from. So, for this DBCember, we'll be going over our top 12 techniques of Dragon Ball. I don't think we necessarily have to describe what constitutes a technique, but we definitely want to point out that transformations do not count.
Yeah, no, top 12 transformations will be next DBCember.
The deciding factors are pretty simple this time around. First, versatility. How easy is it to use and in how many different ways?
Second, effectiveness. How well does the technique work both practically and within the story?
Third, popularity. How much do people think of it when they think of Dragon Ball? And fourth, and most importantly, coolness factor. Because it's Dragon Ball! It's gotta be cool!
We will be rolling out technique variations and even upgraded versions of techniques. So, the Shin Kikoho is still the Kikoho, and the Foot Kamehameha is still the Kamehameha.
And just a reminder that these opinions are strictly our own, and these lists are meant to be a celebration of Dragon Ball, not some rigid, objective ranking system.
Something Battle of Z.
Something get good, f***ers. Something let's get started. Enjoy, folks.
12.
Alright.
Kiko, howdy ho! Tenshinhan managed to squeak into the list.
Alright, fair enough.
Not just because I stand this three-eyed cowboy for life.
The Kikoho is one of those techniques, a forbidden technique.
Tien is awesome.
With cost. And
Always
let us
love
tell
that
you,
character.
there is nothing we love more than a technique with a downside attached to it.
You can make any technique as overpowered as you want, as long as the downside can match its upside. And with the Kikoho, one's body is put under incredible stress when it's used. But Kikoho, oh boy, is the power impressive.
It's enough to have effectively annihilated Goku if he'd stayed in the ring during the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, and keep an opponent dozens of times stronger than him for long enough to save
that was an incredible
while
scene.
Striking a sick pose and shouting like a goddamn madman to pull it off. It does have to be stated that this technique is effective in theory, but in practice, it's never done any significant damage to any particular opponent, with the exception of some Frieza soldiers.
And that's truly unfortunate, because the moments he got to whip out this bad boy truly helped give him some much-needed representation to the human cast. His sacrifice after the death of Chaozu and his attack on Cell are tremendous moments for both him and the rest of the Earthlings.
It doesn't hurt that the pose itself just looks awesome. Whereas a lot of the other techniques have pretty plain stances, there's just something about that pose that feels in line with classic martial arts techniques. Speaking of, it's called the tri-beam in the dub, but he actually makes more of a diamond shape most of the time, doesn't he?
Yeah, but the 3 eyes, hand placement, and the fact that spirit cultivation gun doesn't quite translate well into English probably influenced the change in name, especially since this was back before they felt comfortable leaving the names in Japanese.
Still not as bad as Destructo Disc.
Wait, is that why you guys kept it as Kikoho and abridged?
I you not. The actor for Tenshinhan pushed for Kikoho hard. Of course, for me, that's selling blood to a vampire. Also, fun fact, if you use Takahata's creative character voice in Xenoverse 1 and 2, the names for Kikoho and Shin Kikoho are
Geometry!
and
Advanced Geometry!
respectively.
Back on topic, though, this is just one
That's
of those
pretty cool.
heavy-hitting moves that we feel is underrated in a vast cornucopia of techniques in the Dragon Ball universe. Of course, its rare usage, lack of effectiveness within the story, and lack of popularity put it at the bottom of this list.
But it left a big enough impact on us to feel like it had to make it on here. It may be controversial, but we had to stand by the choice. You know, we hope that's okay.
And it did have some killer
That
moments.
is. Well, nobody asked you, Tien.
Ah, vintage memes.
11.
Lanny,
Kaiser.
please tell me this isn't here because you desperately wanted Goku versus Hit Round 2 to make it into our top 12 fights.
I am not offended, Kaiser, but I am wounded, sir. No, the time skip is here because time abilities kick ass, you son of a bitch!
And another character in Dragon Ball getting a time ability after Goldo was a pleasant surprise. And unlike Goldo, Hit's a genuine martial artist and an assassin, making this already dangerous ability a kiss of death for damn near any opponent.
It definitely helps that the first time we see it, it's to job the living balls out of Vegeta, who'd just been on a winning streak in the Universe 6 tournament. At first, it's hard to tell how Hit's able to ruin every centimeter of Vegeta's princely shit, but Goku picks up on it just soon enough to start a countermeasure.
But only
Because
after making
naturally
him work
Goku
his
does.
ass off for it, landing some pretty painful blows in the meantime, and keeping Goku on the back foot with ease. It's a puzzling sight at first, and it was a great way to establish a remarkable ability able to combat post-Boo Goku without it just being another case of higher numbers.
But it's not so overpowered that it requires Dio Brando levels of pontification to f it up. He's only able to skip a mere 1/10 of a second at first. But when you're moving at supersonic speeds, you cover more ground than a coked up cheetah, and that 1/10 of a second
Yeah,
is a lazy
it
stroll
does
in the
count for a
daisies.
lot.
Of course, much like Dio, he develops it over his fight with Goku, and while our pro tag blunt forces his way through the attack by way of Kaioken times blue, the next time we see it, he's assassinating some scumbag and looking like an utter boss while he does it.
Yeah, as it turns out, Hit can store away time and then slip into another dimension before popping back into ours. And watching him utilize this ability to do his job, those are some tasty donuts.
Time
That's a
abilities are
hell of an
always
ability.
funky, and they're always cool. That's why JoJo villains literally cannot seem to stop ending up with them. The mind-bending feats one must go to just to combat such a threat is a great opportunity for cool fights and clever plays.
And we won't lie, it kind of helps that this technique is owned by the best addition to the Dragon Ball cast post-Z.
Hold up, Kefla doesn't use that time skip?
Kaiser, he obviously meant Jiren.
Yeah, that's
Oh my god.
I couldn't keep a straight face.
If there is one giant downside to this technique, it's that even with how strong it is against a super opponent, the longer the fight drags on, the easier it becomes for your opponent to read your movements and pick up on the patterns.
It's also a bit visually uninteresting a lot of the time.
So it's
though
not infallible.
note the few bits we get to see within Hit's pocket dimension are fantastic. And the glass aesthetic was a brilliant choice to communicate the ability's effect.
Some people might wonder, what about Goldo? He could
Oh, what
fight
about
time for as
Goldo?
long as he could hold his breath. Isn't that a better technique? To which I say, yes, practically. But there are other deciding factors that helped Hits come out on top this time, including the amount it's used within the series, the effectiveness it has against Hits' opponents, and that it looks super f***ing cool in fighters.
Hearing everything looks cool in fighters.
Damn it, I really wish we could have made it our #1 game for 2017.
Maybe 2020 should be top 12 changes we'd make to past DBCembers.
Ooh, let me go first. Number
Interesting.
12. Make Kaiser pronounce Goku correctly.
Oh, give me a fucking break. Special Beam Cannon is a dumb name, right?
Oh, totally. Like, what makes it special? That it's a spiral? Just call it Spiral Beam Cannon.
I mean, it's better than Demon Impaling Light Killing Gun.
I categorically
Nailgun.
disagree.
Well, doesn't matter what you
Doom
call it.
laser.
It only matters that it's cooler than a polar bear's bullocks after a long sit down. At this point in the series, we've never gotten a technique quite like this with such a long wind-up time. But seeing it in full effect is sick nasty, if you'll mind my 90s upbringing. It's a beam, it's a drill, it's a Saiyan killing death blast, and it gets the mother job done.
And we know what you're
Yeah, it does
thinking.
do that.
But guys, it's only ever effective once. Every other time on Dragon Ball proper, it does dick all. To which we say, sure, but name another attack that makes you think of Piccolo more. And don't say Light Grenade. You're lying.
I was gonna say Hellzone Grenade.
You always say Hellzone Grenade.
But yeah, the Makanko Sapo. Jesus, guys, am I really gonna have to read this every single time? The Makanko Sapo is the first new technique introduced in Dragon Ball Z.
Wait, not like
It
the real
is a
name?
Doozy. Its lasting impression on the fandom is hard to quantify, but its power is undeniable and its design is super unique.
It's a move that's legitimately made to kill, from both its name down to its drill aesthetic. And kill it does, ending both Raditz and Goku's lives in one of the most brutal scenes in all of Dragon Ball. Its kill count is already higher than most of the techniques on this list.
And again, we can't overstate how cool it looks. Few other techniques are quite as detailed and unique looking as this one. This corkscrew cannon is always a treat to see in action, even when it's non-canon or not fully charged.
5 minutes is the apparent loading time for the technique, and that's just not practical in most battles.
Yeah, and unless you're willing to go full DP like Goku did, you're rarely going to hit the mark with this dangerous demon drill.
And while we do love us some drawbacks, it does feel like the drawback here outweighs the benefits. And unfortunately, even in Super, when he literally has the chance to lock down Frost, his opponent cheats his way out. But at least we got to see it effectively used in Super against those Universe 6 Namekians in the Tournament of Power.
It's undeniable that this technique is Piccolo's signature move, and that alone could have probably put that on this list. But, giving its killing proficiency and badass design, it had to make it to the top 10.
Fair enough.
Did you know they called it Light of Death in the Viz manga translation?
I've got one better. The Big Green Dub called it Magical Needle Attack.
Oh, Miss Gremlin used that to make a sweater once. She impaled
Oh, those weird ass dubs
last week.
and translations.
How was the sweater?
It's a little itchy.
9.
To think that in the entirety of a series called Dragon Ball, only a single one of the many techniques on display is an actual dragon.
And even then, this one's not even canon.
GT's canon, go yourself.
Kieran, if GT is canon, so is Super.
I'll burn this whole fandom to the ground, Scott.
So, the Dragon Fist. It's a curious choice, I bet you're thinking. Beating out the Makanko Sapo and the Kikoho, this move, used once in the movies and 3 times in GT, has made it to the top 10. But, hear us out.
It's a giant golden fucking dragon summoned from your spirit!
Actually, yeah, that's a big point towards it. Well, a lot of the other
Yeah, I
movies
can
are
imagine.
definitely more powerful. They sometimes lack variation in their actual visual design. But here, there's nothing like the Dragon Fist.
And while it never has a proper explanation of how it came into existence, well, honestly, neither do most of the techniques in the series.
Yeah.
We just kind of accept that this is a manifestation of Goku's ki.
By the way, Goku's ki. Let that sit there for a moment, because you know what this definitively is? A move Goku created! No stealing from Tenshin Han, or Roshi, or King Kai, or the fucking Yardratians! No, this is Goku's move, and it's...
Do the ones that he was
Fair
taught
enough.
count
It's
as
nice that
stealing?
He's got a technique under his belt
Because
that
the
isn't borrowed
Yardratians,
from somebody else. And the
King
idea
Kai
of making
taught
it
him
an
those techniques,
actual
so-
dragon is pretty aesthetically relevant.
They keep
I mean,
calling it
maybe
stealing.
making it like the monkey fist would have been more accurate considering, but that might not have looked
But
quite as
then
cool.
so does
also
every
has a
student who
reliable
learned
habit of putting
anything from
holes
any
into.
teacher is
Every
stealing
time
the
it's used,
knowledge.
This bad dragon leaves its opponent's gaping
Semantics, I
and
know, but
gasping.
whatever.
Oh Jesus, we're so getting demonetized.
And its kill count is nothing to sneeze at. Hirudegan and Ice Shenron were both taken out by the technique. And let me tell you, it's gorgeous both times. Against Hirudegan, it tears through the monster, then envelops him before exploding the killer kaiju. And against Ice Shenron, after the dragon-on-dragon violence, it wraps itself around the whole f***ing city before fading away. Why? Who gives a shit? It's awesome!
And while it's not the killing blow
don't
on Super
question
Mario
it.
17, it's definitely a mortal wound and allows Goku to seal the deal with a Kamehameha.
Usually I have to seal the deal before there's penetration involved.
Good Lord, Lanning, don't be
Trying,
gross.
just
Are you
trying for the.
Suffice to say, the Dragon Fist is a unique,
Demonetization.
powerful technique that has the distinction of being purely Goku's, has a high kill count, and is frankly just cool to look
Not
at.
for fucking
Too bad it
kids.
couldn't put down a Mega Shenron.
Oh, hell no. I'm glad it failed. Otherwise, we'd have never gotten the Universal Spirit Bomb.
So, did Goku die there?
I like to think he did. Makes the ending of GT all that much more profound.
Oh, yeah. You actually like the ending from GT.
Of course I do. It's a better ending than the original manga or Super, that's for sure.
No, look at you guys finding some commonality.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna end this on a cynical note. GT's ending is awesome.
Here, here.
8.
Yeah, I can see
All
that.
right, Lanny. This one's all you.
So imagine a series
Hell's
where
Own Grenade.
techniques are beams and balls of energy, with their instructions being: Step 1, charge. Step 2, fire. Step 3, hope they die. And imagine you're also in a series where the concept of strategy has consistently been told to sit further back on the bus until at some point you're pretty sure it's running behind the bus, begging for it to slow down. So, what happens when, during one of the most entertaining fights in the series, Piccolo finds himself struggling to put down his opponent?
It was a
and
really
so he
fun
uses-
fight to watch.
Wait for it. An actual strategy! You get the Hell's Own Grenade!
Lanny has a boner for this technique, but frankly, it's got me at half-mast over here too. While it's definitely an involved technique, I'd say it even stretches what qualifies as a technique. It's unlike any other power play we'd seen in the series before and would rarely see after.
It's a trap! And unless you catch on quick to what Piccolo is doing, which 17 did not, you can find yourself surrounded by a
Yeah, but then
minefield of energy.
suddenly
ready
he
to
has
blow you
shields.
Into a billion pieces with a single misstep. Unfortunately, 17 did figure out a way to save himself with a last-second, well-timed barrier, but the concept and execution of this technique is hard to ignore, and while Piccolo only uses it a few more times in Super, it's great to see that his self-proclaimed title of strategist isn't all talk and no walk.
But it's not just about the series, and that's where
Yeah,
I come in.
Piccolo's not an
This
idiot,
is a
so.
blast in the games, used for zoning, trapping, good old damage. Hell, in fighters it became so broken they had to patch it.
That's a point in its favor?
2 OP, please nerf, is a point in anything's favor. Except diseases. I wonder if there's a tier list for diseases. Ooh, I wonder where West Nile is on it.
Look, I'm not gonna pretend like I get all the hype here. It's only ever used once in all the original canon, and it's not exceptionally cool looking. But I suppose it does have some major versatility, and, while it was sparingly used, it's also one of Piccolo's most memorable techniques beyond the Makan Kosa. Oh, wait a second. This rated higher than the Makan Kosa Po?
Kaiser, if anyone is taking the placement of these moves that seriously, they're honestly missing the spirit of this list. Yeah, it's rated higher than the Makan Kosapo, but we're also pulling from, God, probably 100 different techniques. Once you've entered the top 12, placement hardly matters anyway.
Also, you pouted like a bitch baby every time we knocked us
Fair
over
point.
on the list.
You can't prove that.
Besides the video we recorded of us coming up with the list?
I fought for justice, Kaiser, and I will not apologize, and I will not back down.
I don't think you should. While we don't want to just honor the underdog and promote the underrated out of pity, I think it's cool that we could come together to show this awesome strategic move some love.
Look, I'm just saying, the Super Ghost Kamikaze attack is just a better version of this move.
Oh, now look who's pouting.
7.
This is just teleportation, right? Why do we gotta call it that? Like, a lot of things for that.
Well, Shingon Ito does basically mean instantaneous movement, but it's a lot like how flying is called the sky dancing technique in Japanese, or Bakujutsu. It's essentially the martial arts term for it.
Yeah, but instant transmission sounds so clinical. It has all the mysticism of a mechanic giving me the rundown of my car. But we digress. It's here at number 7.
Yeah,
and
we
I'm
always
not
have
gonna
issues with
A lot of
the
techniques we've
translations.
listed so far are battle techniques,
the
largely,
dumb stuff.
if not solely, meant for either doing damage or maximizing damage. But this move is something more versatile and frankly more enticing than any of the other techniques on this list.
Let's cut straight to the chase here. Travel blows. It doesn't matter how much you might love seeing new places and trying new things. Forcing yourself into a little metal box of any kind for any amount of time is a bitch. And the farther you have to go, the worse it is.
What if you could travel to Africa in the blink of an eye? Japan? Finland?
Why Finland?
I honeymoon there.
I repeat, why Finland?
What we're trying to say is this technique
Why not?
regularly makes
If
the
you're
top
interested
five
in
of
going,
anyone
then
who's ever asked or been asked the question.
hope you and your husband had a good time there.
Superpower, what would it be?
Never be late for work again. Spend weekends in any part of the world you want, and never be caught
Work.
by the police smoking pot in your car. It's a top-tier ability, and that's not even counting for how it assists in battle.
An opponent may be able to follow your movements even at your fastest, but there is no accounting for full-on instant movement. Getting behind your opponent is a cinch, as is escaping their attacks.
Let's be real. The instant transmission Kamehameha is one of the absolute coolest iterations of the classic technique in the series, and it's a
It was a good
example of how to
combination of the
utilize
two.
This technique in battle. Dodging and counterattacks be damned. Your ass is grass, and Goku's got the grinder.
It's also fantastic for getting into the battle in just the nick of time, before, say, semi-perfect Cell can finish off Ten Shinhan, or when he needs to find the legendary Crybaby on New Vegeta.
It's worth noting that a huge downside to this technique is the requirement that you're able to find a power signature to set your bearing. In other words, if you want to go to Japan, you better be able to sense your friend Mariko there, or you're f***ed. It also requires a lot of concentration, though it does seem to become a lot easier
Yeah,
to
that's
use
true.
as time goes on.
And meanwhile, the gods technically have a better version of this technique that doesn't require you to lock on to anyone's energy, but it doesn't seem to be a technique that can be learned by mortals, and thus has less access to our heroes. It's also a more boring version, to be honest. A drawback makes it more interesting.
So, if you've got the tools to use it correctly, it's unrivaled in terms of just how truly useful it can be, in and outside of battle. Hey, did you know the original plan to eradicate the Saiyans game had an instant spirit bomb?
Wait, really?
Yup! In an alternate ending to the game, Goku throws a big-ass spirit bomb, but then teleport blasts Hachiyak, distracting him long enough for it to hit.
Did you find that out while looking up the technique on Dragon Ball Wiki?
Yup! And most of the migraines have worn off.
6.
Both basic.
Oh, come on! It's the final f***ing Flash! How is it not going to be this high on the list? Frankly, I think it should be higher.
Well, I'm actually torn. On one hand, it's Vegeta's most famous technique, and apparently his most powerful. In a majority of the games, it's his highest level attack, and the pose is, frankly, unforgettable. On the other hand, it's actually only ever used once in the manga proper, and a couple other times in Z Filler and Super.
And it's just a beam. A big yellow beam that hits Cell and does jack squat.
Just a beam? If this thing had hit Cell head on, you couldn't have filled an ashtray with his remains. The damn thing is so strong that the build-up to it shakes the entire planet. And whether or not you're watching the Japanese version, the English version, or, and I'll f***ing say it, the abridged version, the moment he breaks out this attack is full-on monumental. No Kamehameha in this series has built up like this. And the payoff? The beam angles off the planet into space. If that's basic, then pumpkin spice me up, motherfucker.
Oh yeah, give it up for Vegeta's
Yeah, talk about
monumental
basic.
moment. Spends an entire episode charging up his attack only to miss, and then he never breaks it out again. At least when Piccolo one and done his technique, he double killed 2 guys who were stronger than him, and I think we can all agree it looked sick as shit. Meanwhile, the only thing that makes the Final Flash special is that it's named. Vegeta's utilitarian nature extends to his techniques. They hit hard, but they're boring.
I'm frankly surprised to hear this coming from you of all people.
Why? Because I play Vegeta? I'm more than just the characters I play, Kieran.
And
What if it
aren't
was
you, like,
shaped
a huge
dragon?
fan of
Would that
his?
Make it your favorite technique?
He has one of those. It's called the Dragon Final Flash, and it's in Heroes.
Heroes is garbage, and so are you.
I will skin you and wear you like a raincoat.
Whoa, okay, well, let's bring it in. Deep breaths, you guys.
Getting a little
Let's
angry.
Just remember what we're here for, okay?
The
This
spirit.
is a celebration of the series, not a drunken brawl.
Sorry, you're right. We talked about this, and it's here for a reason.
The spirit
It's
of the
more than
list.
just about the look of the technique or its success rate.
The Final Flash is a staple of Vegeta's character, as I said before. It's not only in almost every single game he's in, but it's almost always his most powerful attack, that or a variation of it. And while it's only ever used once in the manga canon, it becomes Vegeta's most commonly used technique in the entire Dragon Ball franchise, and especially in Super, where it's essentially his Kamehameha. Although he still has the Gallic gun, but
Which I might add, I think looks a lot cooler than this. But you're right, the Final Flash is Vegeta's most memorable move, partially because that pose is unforgettable. Although it's pretty funny that Toriyama would give him an early rendition of this technique in his fight against Raccoon, known later in the games as the Final Crash.
Vegeta's got a short list of techniques, but when it comes to one with lasting power, the Final Flash rings in at the top. From its pose, to its power, to its persistence in the fandom.
Also, it looks so much better than the final shine attack. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm not gonna die on that hill. I also wouldn't dare roll it in with this technique. Whoever thought that Vegeta should combine his most interesting attack with his most boring attack should be demoted. Maybe flogged.
So, like the Dragon Final Flash, it's
A final flash that shoots a dragon. Exactly that. And it's amazing.
What is it with you and dragons?
Dragons make everything better, Lanny!
It's Dragonball, for crying out loud. Yes.
top 5, bitches.
All right, Kaiser, now you have to defend your choice.
I
Hands
believe
up.
you'll find me more than up to the task. This technique isn't one of the most popular in the entire franchise, and it belongs to a character who, while a staple of the series since the very beginning, has long since become a secondary character in every regard. However, the Kienzan as a technique is one of the trickiest, most badass, and underappreciated on this list. While a majority of techniques in Dragon Ball, especially the most famous of them all, are concussive and explosive, this one is all about slicing and a dicing. An energy disc so thin yet so powerful, it threatened to decapitate Nappa, an opponent far stronger than Krillin, only having missed its target because Vegeta was smart enough to notice it before his partner could be permanently shortened. And after that, it would manage to dismember a part of Frieza's tail, an opponent, I should emphasize, literally thousands of times stronger than him. In
Yeah,
stark
if he
contrast
managed to get a hit on
Vegeta's
him.
fears, Krillin created a technique that could potentially handle any opponent, no matter the gulf in strength. It's implied that there's no organic being that could withstand the razor's edge of the Kienzan. Not including anime filler bullshit. This elevates it phenomenally for me, especially when you factor in its awesome design
That and,
killer
you know,
pose.
failed against Cell.
But that's
Well,
not all. This handy-dandy amputator comes with multiple settings. You can toss it and forget it, or you can manipulate it with your key, like Yamcha's Spirit Ball, to follow your opponent. Want to use more than one at a time? Multiply that bitch! Their dexterity better be maxed, or they'll be losing more than just a little off the top. Need to ring out your opponent, or use the environment against them? Then take out their footing, or drop a fucking rock on them! You can't lose with the Kienzan.
Unless you miss.
Which Krillin does.
Like, all the time.
He kind of never actually hits anyone dead on.
Except Cell, but then it just...
I said that doesn't count! Sorry. Okay, yeah. There have been more misses than hits. But hey, you miss
So they
every
did
shot
mention
you
the
don't
Cell
take,
thing.
and he takes a lot of shots. This is actually one of the most frequently used techniques in the entire series, even if it's not always explicitly called the Kienzan.
Yeah, sometimes it's called Destructo Disc.
Oh, that name is so corny.
Okay, what would you have called it in English?
Simple, just call it Razor Disc.
Oh, I know somebody with a Laserdisc player. Great video quality. For the time.
Oh my god.
Seriously though, we love this technique too, for the million reasons you listed. We'd just be remiss not to point out its shortcomings. When you have a technique that literally everybody ends up ripping off before the end of the series, you know you've got something truly special.
Hey, how are we supposed to explain that Solar Flare didn't make the list?
They can watch the honorable mentions video for that.
Fun fact, if you choose Taka's voice in Xenoverse 1 and 2 when you create a character, he says pizza time when he uses the Kienzan.
Hey, does anyone hear music in the background?
4,
Remember when the dub called this the Kaioken?
Yeah, he learned it from King K.
And then he met West K and South K and East K.
Before meeting the Grand K.
And finally, the Supreme
Supreme.
K.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I guess he never actually met the Grand Supreme K, huh?
Actually, in the latest Super manga...
Kyle, can we please get back on track here?
Sorry, yeah. So the Kaioken might seem like an odd choice this high on the list, but let's be honest. While it has a singular function, it becomes a staple of Goku's character and the franchise as a whole right after its introduction.
Which isn't to understate the overwhelming effect of this ability. In its first outing, it helps to level the playing field between Goku and Vegeta.
Yeah, but then once the transformation started, until Super, Kaioken kind of went,
Yeah, honestly. Never before was Goku so
like once the Super
completely
Saiyan stuff
outmatched.
started up,
Even
it was like
compared to
Kaioken
his
kind of
brother,
fell by the
over
wayside
mighty
for a
Kaioken.
while.
He surprises the Prince of all Saiyans and makes him bleed his own blood.
And goddamn, it looks cool. His entire body is enveloped in a reddish purple fire, and it's just amazing to watch. This is a technique with a flavor all its own, and the ability to give a character such a tremendous boost is not just valuable, but manages to keep Goku alive for a good portion of the series. It's also worth noting that this technique's got a wicked asterisk on it. If you don't have perfect control, you're likely to ruin your body, and the higher the multiplier you use, the more likely you are to go nuclear.
Too bad Super Saiyan makes it basically obsolete within the manga canon, though.
Right.
Which is truly unfortunate. A boost of strength at the risk of one's body is very in line with Goku's character, and it's sad to see it drift away before becoming a non-entity come the Cell Saga.
But there's something to be said about it that truly sets it apart, that elevates it for us. Maybe it's more than just what we see in the series, but also the unfortunate missed potential.
Right? A technique that could have been taught to Ten Shinhan, Yamcha, Piccolo, and Chaozu, that Goku could have taught Krillin or anybody? But for some reason, it's Goku only, and would only come back in Super for what is admittedly a pretty damn cool scene.
Yeah, that Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken is a trip, and it's a highlight of the series. A series I personally find about as appealing as a durian smoothie, but a highlight nonetheless.
Oh, you're just a sucker for climaxes that utilize the opening theme.
Also that.
Speaking of Super and the Kaioken, he does use the Super Kaioken against Paikon. Presumably it only works because, I guess he's dead.
And apparently, Super Saiyan 4 Xeno Gogeta can use it in Super Dragon Ball Heroes.
My boy!
Okay, dude, keep it in your pants.
Never!
Honestly, it's just impossible not to give this technique its due. There's nothing else quite like it in the series, and while its use is inconsistent, it's part of Goku's character more than almost any other technique. It looks fucking awesome, and it's generally badass. Also, this is gonna sound so dorky, but when I was younger, whenever I had to force myself through something physically intense, I would whisper Kaioken under my breath, and depending on how much I was struggling, I would add a higher multiplier.
Holy shit. That's so relatable, it hurts.
Hey, whatever gets the job done.
3.
Okay.
Top 3, where it
Do what you gotta do.
Time to drop a bomb.
A Spirit Bomb?
You know, Genkidama is fun to say, but Spirit Bomb is a real cool fucking name.
And a real cool fucking technique.
The Spirit Bomb is one of the most unique out of all the energy attacks on this list, in that it requires multiple people to work properly. And not just people, but all living things on the planet, and sometimes even surrounding planets.
Anything that has
Or
spirit
even
energy.
the entire universe.
This is another Goku staple, and it is a doozy. Taught to him by King Kai, it gathers up energy from surrounding life and weaponizes it against evil. And I mean that literally. The only way to either utilize or survive this technique is to have a pure heart. Otherwise, your bitch ass is SOL.
It is a true ultimate attack in a lot of ways. If any factor falls short, the attack won't be strong enough. Hell, even against Vegeta and Frieza, it doesn't quite finish the job, though it does help push them closer to victory. And it did manage to finish off both Buu and Omega Shenron.
And 4 whole movie villains. It's his fucking Rasengan in those movies. I won't lie though, my favorite has to be movie 7. He goes Super Saiyan and can't maintain the actual ball, so he absorbs it into himself, and his sheer aura is enough to start disintegrating Super Android 13. Also, this face will follow you into your nightmares. You're welcome.
And the climax against
Yeah, thanks for that.
is one of the best in the franchise. While it's true that the Buu saga itself is one of the weaker arcs, the insane final battle and climax are a treat, and the Spirit Bomb was a fantastic
Buu
catalyst
saga
for
definitely dragged.
finally getting the W and eliminating that pesky pink powerhouse for good. It's also worth mentioning that it's the impetus for Ultra Instinct, one of our favorite forms in the entirety of Dragon Ball.
It also makes sense that only Goku can use it because of his pure-hearted nature. Although it might have been cool to watch Gohan make one. We know he's pure-hearted enough because he can ride the Nimbus and he was able to ricochet it back against Vegeta.
Hell, Krillin was able to hold it and even throw it. Are we sure about this whole pure-hearted thing? Or did King Kai just say that so he wouldn't have to teach it to the humans?
King Kai, racist or just lazy?
He's a deity, so I'm gonna assume 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Point being, the Genkidama is awesome, top to bottom. And while it's not always the most effective, it definitely gets its due, and is a staple of Dragon Ball. While I personally wasn't a huge fan of it making it this high on the list, it's impossible to ignore the cultural impact this technique has had, and its history with the franchise.
It also, way hikes up Goku's kill count when it comes to the movies.
Oh yeah, no room for mercy there. Actually, most of the films end up with Goku straight up icing his opponents.
Yeah, no, what's more amazing to me is how many deaths he's responsible for as a child.
Are we still sure about this whole pure-hearted thing?
2.
Got the fusion, so I'm assuming Kamehameha will be
We are
number 1.
Damn, blast from the past over here.
Just wait for Xenoverse 3!
Some of you probably didn't even expect this to be on the list, much less at number 2. Most people don't even consciously consider fusion as a technique. But it absolutely is, and we think it's one of the coolest in the entire franchise.
We're cool as
Okay, I am not doing this entire entry alone. I'm fused.
fine.
You weren't alone, you had the one guy there.
Alright, so there's a bush, but we're not gonna beat around it. Fusion loses more battles than it actually wins. At best, it's used to progress the story, and at worst, it's a marketing tactic to sell more toys. It only ever kills Janemba and manages to defeat Broly in the Super movie.
Damn, Kaiser, really making a case for the entry here, aren't you?
You have to get this
Yeah,
out
for
of
number
the
2
way.
entry.
That is the biggest argument against it. But once you've taken that argument into consideration, there's all the positives left for Fusion, both within the universe itself and the fandom and franchise as a whole.
Like how Fusion is quite frankly an ingenious and super fun way to gain a power-up? Instead of giving some bullshit power unlocking ceremony for the 3rd time in the series, or just going through the same damn training for the billionth time, Toriyama found a way to mix up
Yeah, but the
old
training is
formula
permanent.
by having characters fuse together, which, you know, given Japan's love of all things that combine, is not too surprising.
And the best part is, these fusions are usually a ton of f***ing fun. To be frank, I'm not a fan of Kid Trunks or Kid Goten. They're barely actual characters in the story, and while they're harmless at best, they're annoying and shallow at worst. But when Gotenks hits the scene with his swag-ass vest, they were suddenly a factory for creative techniques and silly exploits.
Galactic Donuts, Ultra Boo Boo Volleyball, Super Ghost Kamikaze Attack,
Bitch, I desperately fought to be on this list.
Die Missile Barrage, and more! He comes out swinging with more fun and fanfare than any other character in the entire arc. And while he doesn't quite get the job done, his existence is all due to Fusion.
But the fun doesn't stop there. Vegito also hits the scene with the Potara version of the technique, which may not technically count as a technique, but we think we can fudge the rules on this one a little. Vegito is one of the best fusions in the series. He's incredibly cocky, but has every single bit of power to back it up. His outfit is an inverse of Goku's with Vegeta's gloves and boots and some killer bangs. And his bit-by-bit takedown of Buu is one of the most entertaining fights in the entire Buu arc.
I really love that he fought back as a piece of candy and was whooping his
To
ass.
beat the living tar out of Broly in Super Broly. Oh, and in GT as Kieran's husbando. And, of course, you can't forget about K-Flow, one of the best fusions in the entire franchise.
They are the legendary Super Lesbian!
Even if no, that outfit, girl, leave the yoga pants at home. Ugh.
But like we said before, it's not just about the in-universe usage, it's about how it affected the franchise as a whole. Tell me, Kaiser, is there a Dragon Ball Spirit Bomb game?
No, Kieran, I don't think there is.
Lanny, is there a Dragon Ball Makanko Sapo game?
Besides the minigame in Budokai? Nah.
Well, do you know what there is? A Dragon Ball Fusions game, motherfucker! They made an entire game out of fusing. You want classic staples like Gogeta and Vegito? Done. Want the fun what-ifs you've come to know and love like Peridian and Tiencha? Easy. Want your old school fan fiction with Gohanks and Yinks? Come on, stop being boring. How about Celza, Gorus, Majin Satan, Great Saiyaman mixed with Captain Motherfucking Ginyu? The list goes on.
Dragon Ball
Which
Fusion
none of those
is
make
inspired an
sense.
entire generation of
Well, I mean, not none of them. Some of them make sense, but you have to
shows
have
like
the
Steven Universe, taking the idea and running with it in its own
same
brilliant way. The sheer
power
reach
level.
of the fusion technique is pretty nuts. Possibly overshadowed.
They fucked
by
that one up.
one
That
other
fusion
technique,
failed.
Which,
those
at
football
this
players.
point, well, we're sure you've been able to suss out what it is.
In terms
Yeah.
of power-up, it's unrivaled. In terms of creativity, it's a wellspring of opportunities to explore crazy, fun ideas. It's a simple technique that introduced so much to the franchise, and for that, we're happy to have it at number 2.
Hey, Kaiser, you want to try?
Oh man, yeah, sure. Okay, cool. All right, I'm ready.
Fusion!
Oh my god!
Oh my god! Kaiser, you got the angle wrong!
Number 1.
If you were a kid and you watched Dragon Ball and you never practiced the Kamehameha at least once, you are a fucking sociopath.
I think Aaron is trying to say the Kamehameha is perhaps the most important
I'm called out now.
in all of Dragon Ball. And while it might be a boring pick at number 1, it's also earned that spot by being a
Goddamn,
part
I
of
did
not only Dragon
try
Ball,
it
but
before.
the anime
It never
community for
works.
over 30 years and beyond.
From the obligatory chant to the classic pose to the destructive force of its big throbbing beam, the Kamehameha is a part of
Alright, easy, Kaiser.
It is where all key attacks were birthed from, and truth be told, where all key attacks return.
Named by Toriyama's wife, and a direct reference to the House of Kamehameha, a dynasty of Hawaiian kings, the technique is the absolute first ki blast we see in Dragon Ball. First delivered by Master Roshi, then copied shortly after by a young Son Goku.
And thus would become a staple of Goku's character.
Yeah, that one was
his
kind of
signature
stolen.
move,
He wasn't
to the point
taught
where
that.
fans of the series would look at other characters' move lists and wonder, what's their Kamehameha? I still maintain that the Gallic Gun is Vegeta's, but I digress. It would feature in some of the most climactic and dramatic moments in the series, including his battle against Vegeta, Gohan's last stand against Cell, Goku's climax against Hit in the Universe 6 tournament. But even when it's not part of the climax, it's being used all throughout the movies and series to thrilling effect.
Part of the
Very
reason
true.
it remains such a staple of the series is partially due to its simplicity. You charge, you fire, and you hope it did the trick. But in that simplicity comes versatility. Do you know how many versions there are of the Kamehameha? Whatever number you just thought, it is probably way too low.
You have the original Kamehameha. You have the one-handed Kamehameha. You have the Tarantino Kamehameha.
Kaioken Kamehameha, Kaioken Multiplier Kamehameha, Big Bang Kamehameha, Final Kamehameha, Black Kamehameha.
10 times Kamehameha, Burning
Alright,
Kamehameha.
I'm getting
Atomic
sick of hearing the word now.
Dragon Kamehameha!
Holy shit. Hey, remember in Evolution where they
No, no.
Did? And it looked like a bunch of cheap particle effects.
Also, it had like 0 kickback, so you could literally jump toward your opponent mid-blast. Like, what?
Oh my god, that movie's such a used barf bag.
Although the Kamehameha's appearance in the live-action movie might not have been a great example, it's impossible to ignore all the homages, parodies, and straight-up rip-offs that the technique has inspired to this very day. Just try and tell me the Hadouken wouldn't look exactly like it does right now if it weren't for the Kamehameha, or Lina Inverse's Dragon Slave, Lucario's Aura Sphere, just to name a few.
You cannot escape the Kamehameha.
Especially
Even
if you use the instant Kamehameha. It sounds like a stovetop Kamehameha. Just add key! What's next? Family size Kamehameha?
Low-fat Kamehameha.
Chocolate Kamehameha!
There's so much that could be said about the Kamehameha, but to be honest, it's been said a million times by a million different
And
people.
I think you've said
And
the
that's
name
kind of what makes it so crazy.
about
So
a
amazing.
million times just now.
And our number 1 pick.
Wow, is that it?
It stops sounding
Felt like
right
more to
when
say.
you hear something
right?
over and
Most
over, like
famous
they
thing
just
in all of
repeated
Dragon
that
Ball,
damn word.
maybe anime, and I feel like we're selling it short.
Honestly, I think there's only one thing left to say, guys.
Right. But first, before we go, thanks for joining us for this year's DBCember.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you have any moves you think should have made the top 12? Any moves that you think shouldn't have been on here?
Any suggestions for next year's DBCember? Make sure to give us your feedback in the comments.
Until next year, we wish a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year to every single one of you beautiful people for helping us celebrate Dragon Ball once again.
All right, guys. You ready?
Ready!
Way to end it. Yeah. It does have a lot of homages, even in My Little Pony, which is fantastic. They had the charge up, the limp, and then just the thrust and fire. And shows how you can do it when you don't have arms and hands to do the signature move. So yeah, firing from your face or your head. So yeah, that was the top 12 Dragon Ball techniques. To be fair, there's like just so many techniques, like they had said, hundreds of some that are out there. I can't really think of anything I would put over the stuff on the list that they had mentioned. It's usually just variations of stuff that they mentioned here. Let's see. I'm trying to think of something. And, yeah, I think they created a pretty solid list here. It was definitely an entertaining video. I want to thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed that. As I said before, be sure to support the official release. The link to the original video is in the description below. And I'm going to end this one here. Until next time. Take care.